Corey was the campaign manager for the Trump for President campaign, got him the nomination. And Corey, also a Fox News contributor, the author of 2 New York Times bestsellers, not 1, but 2. Let Trump Be Trump, I read that, must read, and then Trump's Enemies, a definite must read. You can get those. Here's the easiest thing. Just go to my website, johnfredericksradio.com, and the advertisements for the 2 books are right there, right in the middle. Click on it, get your link, you're good, buy them right there, or you can go to Amazon or your favorite bookstore or wherever you want to go to buy them. He also does a podcast every Thursday. It's the hottest podcast in America. He does it with Dave Bossie, and it's like absolute must-listen radio. In fact, they got a few of them in. Now we're going to start playing them on WJFN because they're that hot, and you can do that by just going to any platform, and the title of it is Deep in the Swamp, and you can get that on Rough Rider Media. Corey, joining us now. Great to have you.
Well, John, thank you for having me. Good morning.
All right, New York Times bestseller. I mean, some people, their whole lives don't get on the New York Times bestseller. You got on it twice. It's unbelievable, right? I mean, it's really neat.
You know what they say, John? Even a blind squirrel finds a nut now and then, right? So I get lucky. Don't kid yourself, John. I get very, very lucky, and I'm very fortunate for that. I just got lucky twice, I guess.
Well, let's get to this budget compromise to keep the government open. The president says, look, I'm not happy with it, but I'm inclined to sign it. What say you?
Well, John, I spent some time with the president yesterday. I was in the Oval Office, and he didn't tell me ultimately what he was going to do, but what I think he should do, and I don't know if he will, is I think he should sign this deal. It's not a great deal, to be very honest with you. $1.375 billion for wall money. But I would want the president, when he signs this, because you can't close the government, in my opinion. I want the president, once he signs this, to also declare a national emergency and use any additional money that he has access to get the 5.7 total needed to build this wall, to build the border fence, to build the barrier, to build whatever you want to call it that will prevent illegal aliens, criminals, and other of those ilk from coming across the border illegally. So my recommendation to the president yesterday in the White House was sign the deal, keep the government open, and then use your authority under the Constitution to declare an emergency and get the rest of the money in any way, shape, or form you can to make sure that we have the necessary protections on our southern border, that our people are safe.
Corey, when you gave that recommendation to the president, how did he react to that?
Well, look, the president, someone who plays the cards very close to his vest, and I am certain I am not the only person or the only one, trying to give those recommendations to the president, but he was very open to the recommendation, and ultimately I have full confidence that the president is going to make the right decision for the American people, and I don't believe, even though I think the bill that Congress has right now, the 1.375, is short of what the president wanted. I think it falls short of what the American people need, but I don't believe that closing the government is of value to the president or the people. And while I firmly believe we have a crisis on the southern border, knowing that we're going to keep the government open and the president has other ways for solving the problem is what encouraged me to make that recommendation.
I agree with you, Corey. I mean, closing the government, we've been down this path a number of times. It's a disaster for Republicans. It really takes all the emphasis off of what we're debating and puts it on to people not getting paychecks. And it's just a bad thing. It's disruptive to the economy, and it's just dumb and stupid. So I absolutely wouldn't do that. And having done this, it went on for 35 days, and the Republicans got nowhere with it. So I just think it's a bad idea. I love your idea, though. I think you should sign it and then immediately divert funds over there and let the chips fall where they may. There's going to be lawsuits, Corey, but the president's going to get sued no matter what he does. It doesn't matter. Right now, we've got a situation where that southern border is a crisis. We've got another caravan on the way. Why not? They get in, and if they are apprehended, they're released. What did you think about the Democrat? I have not been able to figure this out, Corey. Shed light on this. One of the Democrats' provisions in the negotiation was to eliminate the number of ICE beds. What is going on with that?
Well, John, let's use the proper terminology. This is not about beds. You and I get to go in our bed every night because we're not criminals. What they're talking about, John, in the world of criminals is cells, jail cells that they want to eliminate, which means if we don't have enough cells, it's not the amount of beds, okay? It's the amount of jail cells that we can put criminals in. That's what the Democrats want to eliminate. And the president was very, very strong on this, and his team negotiated and said, hey, no problem. You want to negotiate jail cells, how many people, how many criminals we can put in jail? Then let's just be clear. The next time we have an Officer Singh issue where an illegal comes into our country and kills another American, because we know it happens all too often, we're just going to remind the American people that you didn't want to have those people in jail, the convicted felons who are coming across. This isn't about beds, John. John, that's the word the left uses to pretend that these people are good people. This is about the number of jail cells that we can build or they don't want to build to stop the criminals from being able to roam free. So what the president said and his team said, and is my understanding, was that we're not going to limit the number of jail cells we can build, the number of detention facilities that we can put criminals in who don't belong on the streets. That is not a negotiation point, and because of that, I think they finally understood that that is an issue that they cannot win on. The Democrats did.
Well, that's why they abandoned it. Is this the campaign issue, one of the big issues, Corey, do you think, going into 2020?
Well, I think it is. And I think, look, this president has made a pledge to build the wall and to protect Americans. This is a seminal issue for the campaign. And his ability now, as the president, and I hope he will declare a national, will show that, once again, it's hard to be a leader. It's hard to go out and fight not only the Democrats, the mainstream media, but also members of your own party. And so this is what leaders do, and the American people see that, and they are with him on the fact that he is the only one. John, 4 years ago, nobody was talking about the issue of illegal immigration. Not one candidate on either side of the aisle. This president has made it such a seminal issue that everybody in America, whether you agree or disagree, now finally understands the crisis that we currently have on our southern border. And the 35-day shutdown of the government was an exclamation point on that discussion. And now, when the president gets this bill, whether it's today or tomorrow, I believe he will sign it, and then he will use his authority to solve the problems that we have, which the American people either didn't know about or didn't care about just a few short years ago.
Listen, Corey, you are so right on this, and I think this whole debate on whether you want open borders or not is really going to go to the 2020 campaign, and I believe that the Democratic nominee is going to run on a platform of letting everybody in because they can't run away from this from their base. We're with Corey Lewandowski, Senior Advisor to the Great America Committee. That's greatamericacommittee.com. That is Vice President's Hard Money PAC. He's also the author of the best podcast right now in America, Deep in the Swamp. You can get that by going to roughrider.media. Corey, look, we know that if the bill gets signed, that a lot of those that are immigration hawks, those on the right, like Ann Coulter, are going to blast the president. We're going to have to go through that again. What would your message be to Ann Coulter and others that are now criticizing the president as not keeping his word?
Well, John, you have to understand, right? The president has already gotten money to rebuild sections of the wall that were fallen apart, and that's important, okay? But building new portions of the wall is just as important. And we saw his speech in El Paso this week. It was amazing on Monday. He outlined what he's going to do. And the 55 miles of the wall that are going to be funded in this particular bill, as we now know it, is a great beginning. And you know, with all due respect to Ann and all of these others, This has been an issue that has faced the American people for a long time, and Donald Trump has taken it head on. Who else has fought as hard as he has to stop illegals from coming into the country? Clearly, nobody in the Republican Party has fought hard, and we clearly know that the Democrats are in favor of open borders and more criminals because Nancy Pelosi said she was willing to give $1. That was her remark. $1 for a border wall offense, a barrier, whatever you want to call it. But you have to look at the totality of what's going to come across. Not only are we going to continue building this wall, and the president will use his executive authority, I sure hope so, to build the rest of this, but the money that we have for more border agents, more drones, more sophistication, more technology is also included in that. So it's the totality of what we're doing. And I like Ann, and I know her well, but you have to look at the big picture. And the big picture is we are going to be better tomorrow if the president signs this bill and issues an executive order to uses his executive authority to go and use other pots of money than we were today. And that's what this is about, is making America safer and more secure. And this president is doing that.
John Frederick's Radio Network with Corey Lewandowski, the author of 2 New York Times bestsellers, Let Trump Be Trump and Trump's Enemies. You can get those. Go to Amazon.com, your favorite bookstore, or just go to my website, johnfredericksradio.com. Both ads for the books are there. You click on it. You're good to go. Get it now. Hey, just in time for Valentine's Day if you go to a store and buy it. Get that for your loved one. That's what I would do. Also, his podcast, Deep in the Swamp, comes out tomorrow. Don't want to miss that. Corey, Senator Rand Paul, one of the Republicans that you eviscerated in the nomination contest. A good guy, though. But he said, look, he said yesterday, the border wall proposal hammered out by congressional negotiators, Senator Rand Paul from Kentucky, and I quote, called it a big victory for President Trump. He did this in an interview with Breitbart that's airing today as we speak. You've even got Rand Paul, who's been exactly a Trump fan and everything, saying, look, it's a big win based on where we were, and it opens the door for the president to go forward. How do you react to that?
Look, I have enormous respect for Rand Paul. He has been someone who has helped the president move his agenda forward from the day that the president got elected. And so I think the senator is exactly right, looking at the big picture, that we have to have continued incremental gains of what we're doing. And 55 miles funded by this bill, the additional money that I'm certain the president, his team, Mick Mulvaney, and others can come up with to fund more of the wall, gets us on the right path. And, John, I know I sound like a broken record today, but if it wasn't for Donald John Trump being the president of the United States, we would have no discussion on illegal immigration. We would have no discussion on additional money for a wall, a barrier, a partition, whatever you want to call it, right? That would not be a conversation if Donald Trump wasn't forcing this to happen. And so this is a victory for the administration. Do we want more money? You bet we do. Do we deserve the right to have our nation's borders secured and stop people from crossing illegally? You bet we do. But this is the step in the right direction, and I am very, very confident, John, that the president is going to do everything necessary to make sure the entire wall is built before we have more issues taking place with Congress. And look, John, Congress has failed the American people.
Right. Let's
not kid ourselves. For 2 years, they had no interest in this issue, even though the Republicans controlled it. And now, because the president has forced this issue onto the limelight, this is the only reason this conversation is still taking place.
Corey, no question about it. And as I said, this is going to be the key issue going into the 2020 elections. I think it's going to affect who wins the presidency and also a lot of these congressional districts where average people look at this and they just don't understand where the Democrats are coming from and why we should let criminals that are in jail right now that have been picked up by ICE because they've committed crimes in the U.S. just open the doors and let them out on the street. I mean, this is just hard for people to fathom, man. And I don't know where the Democrats are going with it. Let's get to Virginia. It's a clown show. No question about it. Corey. And I know we lost Virginia in the 2016 election. Hillary beat us by 5. But you look at the nonsense that's gone on here in the last 3 weeks, and it really is anything beyond the pale of what you could imagine. People blackface, calling on each other to resign. They're not resigning. Allegations against the lieutenant governor, Justin Fairfax. He's not resigning. He's dug in. And then, of course, this all started with the third-term trimester bill that the governor, Ralph Northam, defended on another radio station, not mine, and basically saying, well, you know, when it comes out, if the mother and doctor don't think it's a good idea, well, resuscitate it, keep it comfortable, and then decide from there, which I guess means extinguish it or execute it or whatever you want to say. What the hell's going on here?
Well, John, I think you've hit the nail around the head. The moral of the story is he should not go on any other radio shows. You know that.
That's right.
Because if he was on your radio show, the state of Virginia would be back to where it started, I think.
I think that's true.
I'm obviously kidding, John. So, don't have anybody give me all the hate, but he should have been on your radio show and not on a different show.
Yes.
But the truth is, as we sit here today, we don't know. Governor Northam has not said if he was the one in blackface or the Ku Klux Klan outfit.
Right.
Okay? He said, I apologize for being in the picture, but didn't say which one of the two. It was a 50-50 chance, and we're assuming, maybe rightfully or wrongfully, that he was the guy in blackface, because we can't fathom in this day and age that the governor of Virginia would have been walking around in a Ku Klux Klan outfit 30 years ago. And so he hasn't admitted which one he was in that. Now he recanted that. But the real story, John, and the hypocrisy of all of this, and just think about this. The white governor who was in either blackface or a Ku Klux Klan outfit picked an African-American to run with him as a lieutenant governor. And now that person has been accused by 2 different women of ultimately what can be surmised as rape, is what they've said, that he raped those people or had contact that they didn't approve on 2 separate occasions. Both women are fairly sophisticated and have almost the very exact same story. And we have now seen, I think, a Democrat legislator file for the impeachment of the African-American lieutenant governor, as opposed to the governor and the attorney general, who were both admitted now to either walking around in blackface and or having hoods on and being members of the Ku Klux Klan. If that is not hypocrisy, then I don't know what is. And I'm not making light of the issue. What I'm telling you is, if the governor had not been embroiled in this controversy, I don't think we would know about the lieutenant governor's problems. And the only person right now who is attempting to be held accountable through the legal process, which is the impeachment of them from office, is the lieutenant governor of the state of Virginia. And, if you ask the Democrats who are running for office, presidential candidates, what they think, their answer is, hey, everybody should resign, right? But there has been almost no media attention on this issue compared to the Brett Kavanaugh hearings and the accusations that he faced, and the Secretary of State of Florida, who admitted to wearing blackface and immediately resigned because they forced that person to do that. Where is the mainstream media continuing to hold Ralph Northam accountable? He said, I'm not resigning. There's nothing you can do. And they said, okay, I guess that makes it acceptable then. It's amazing, the hypocrisy. And look, John, one other additional point I just want to make. Mitch McConnell said he's going to make the Democrats in the U.S. Senate vote on this crazy Green Deal initiative that they put in place. I am so excited by that, because that is the far left-wing lunacy of the left that they now have to be held accountable for, and they are scared to death about it. And so, the Democrats should have to come forward, and they should have to have a strong position on the governor, the lieutenant governor, and the attorney general in Florida. And you mentioned it earlier. Congressman Beyer mentioned it. The reason they don't want those 3 to resign is because the Speaker of the House, who I think was actually, his name was pulled out of a hat in an election, literally, right, or a coin flip, would become the governor, if you can believe it. That's what's going on in Virginia politics today.
Corey Lewandowski, right target, spot on as always. His podcast, number one, if you do one podcast a week, do the only one that matters, and that's Corey Lewandowski's podcast with David Bossie. You got to tune in. It comes out every Thursday. You can get the back ones. Go to roughrider.media. Roughrider.media. It's called Deep in the Swamp. Corey, thanks for being with us, man. Always appreciate it. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you, John.